In this video, I'm going to show you how to factor out the GCF from a polynomial. So a quick reminder of what the greatest common factor is would be, if you look at the two monomials on your screen, 3x squared and 9x cubed, you learn different methods in Algebra 1, but we need to speed it up in Algebra 2. So just think in your head, what's the biggest thing that goes into both 3 and 9? And that would be 3. Then you look at your variables. I have an x squared, which is x times x, and x cubed would be x times x times x. So if you think how many x's are in common, well, that would be x times x, or x squared is in common to both. So a shortcut is just look at your variables and take the one with the lower exponent. So in 15a to the fourth and 21a squared, for 15 and 21, the largest thing that goes into both would be 3. And then if I look at a to the fourth and a squared, I take the one with the lower exponent. It's 3a squared. Now, let's start actually factoring out the greatest common factor. And I just want you to recall what the distributive property states. What you're doing is passing out the 4 to both things inside parentheses, which would result in 4x minus 12. And at this point, you're an expert at this fact. What I want you to notice is that this answer right here is a simplified form. And we're working on factoring. Well, this right here is actually the factored form. Factors, remember, are two or more things multiplied together. So 4 is a factor and x minus 3 is a factor. So when you're factoring out the greatest common factor, you're starting with the simplified and you're doing the distributive property in reverse. So let's factor out the GCF from the examples you see on your screen. So when I look at 3x minus 15. The greatest common factor is 3, so I put that out front, and then I divide each term by 3, which results in x minus 5. So 3 times the quantity of x minus 5 is the factored form. A way to check it would be redistribute, and you'll see that you get the binomial you began with. In the second one, 2a cubed minus a, the greatest common factor would be a. So then you divide each term by a, which would result in 2a to the second power, because you keep your base and subtract your exponents, minus 1, because a divided by a would be 1. So your final answer, that's kind of blurred together, let me just erase this part, would be a times the quantity of 2a squared minus 1. Now, in number 3, my greatest common factor is 2. So I open up a set of parentheses and I divide each term in the trinomial by 2, which results in x squared minus 2x plus 4. In number 4, the leading coefficient, notice that this is negative, and we don't like that. It's kind of one of these things in algebra, so always factor out a negative GCF. The largest thing that goes into 3 and 12 is 3, and x squared and x take the one with the lower exponent, be negative 3x. So now I divide each one by that negative 3x, and I would get x to the first minus, because positive divided by a negative is a negative, minus 4. And again, if I redistribute, I will see that I get the answer that I started with. All right, in number 5, I'm going to factor out, again, let's see, I'm going to factor out 3 and 3x. So I divide each by 3x, which results in x plus 4. That one was very similar to number 4 on the previous screen. In number 6, my greatest common factor, largest thing that goes into 3, 36, and 9 would be 3. And there is no x in all 3 terms, so I simply divide each term by 3. So it's 3 times the quantity of x squared plus 12x minus 3. Now, one of the things you should always check is when you look at your remaining polynomial, make sure that the greatest common factor of all 3 terms is now 1. In number 7, again, I have a leading coefficient that's negative, so I'm going to pull out a negative greatest common factor, and when I look at 2 and 6, the largest thing would be 2. So I divide each term by negative 2, which results in x squared plus 3. Finally, number 8, my greatest common factor, coefficient would be 1 here. So the greatest common factor would be 1, a to the, take the one with the lower power, squared, and there's a b in both terms. So now I divide each by a squared b, which would result in 4a to the first, and the b's would cancel, minus, divide this one by a squared b, this and this would cancel, and I'd be left with just 1. So it's a squared b times the quantity of 4a minus 1. If you need additional help factoring out the greatest common factor, please see me because this is always your first factoring step.